You're listening to More Than Reports, and I'm your host, Paul B. Felix.
In this episode, we continue our exploration of data warehouses, and we wrap up our 6-part series on data architecture. We discuss the latest trends and how they may impact your business.
We've been talking about data architectures for several episodes now, and I think we're doing that, Paul, because we think that's really important. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a foundation to understand, basically what we're building and why we're building it. So I think these episodes are hopefully, not going into too much technical detail, but hopefully they're giving a business user the ability to understand, why certain recommendations are being made and what's actually being done behind the scenes.
And when you decide to do something, it's good to know where you're going to end. So this it's almost like a vision, more than saying we're going to do something. Well, tell me really in real detail what something looks like. And this is what we've been discussing in this mini series here. So today we decided to continue to talk about data warehouses. We started that in our last episode. That's how important we think that architecture is. It is fair to say the most dominant architecture in data designs for the longest time. We've been talking about them for many years. They evolved. So let's continue, Paul. Data warehouse, is it a one or is there many ways to go about building one? Are there style preferences? Are there superior designs? What's your take?
I mean, yes to all of that. There's many techniques. Well, I wouldn't say many techniques. There's very well established techniques. There's several established techniques. There's certainly different technologies that can be used to build the solutions. It's kind of across the board. How much time it's going to take, again, is completely dependent upon the requirements and the size of the team and the level of effort put into it. So that's one of the things that makes this difficult, I think, for business users is it's hard to get your head around it, right? Where exactly are we building is one question, and how long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? Those are really common questions, and it's really difficult for a implementation team to say, well, it's going to cost you this at the end of the day. And really the reason for that is no one really knows, unfortunately. And that's because we don't know what tomorrow's requirements are going to be. Yes, we can take today's requirements and we can say, hey, this is what we're going to build to suffice that one requirement. But the requirements are going to change. And over time, it is going to, the system has to evolve. And that is going to change the scope of the project, the cost of the project, the time of the project. On the time aspect, I really think we got to throw that one out the window. I mean, it has to be a business function. That's it. And unless you're looking at a data warehouse or a business intelligence solution, decision support solution, analytical solution, whatever you want to call this, unless you're looking at that as a business function, don't go down this road because it's very, very, it takes a lot of investment, not just financially, but intellectually. It takes a culture for an organization to actually reap the benefits of these solutions. And that's not something that can be done as a project, unfortunately. Yes, you can take units of work and build them one at a time. I'm not saying that's not possible, but the overall solution, if you have this vision of wanting to make your organization more efficient and meet your goals by providing people the information they need to make good decisions, don't think of that as a project. Think of it as a business function because it does not end.
That's interesting because it almost gets philosophical, right? I mean, it takes a commitment. It's not about getting religious about it, but it is about understanding or accepting that to run a business, um, you need good, solid data foundation. Some people take it for granted because finance is giving the reports. Well, finance is the data function right there, or operations,
Mhm.
or whoever is feeding management with the information they need to run the business. So it's not that you're not doing, you maybe not calling it what it
That's
is,
right.
but it is always there. Uh,
That's right.
you're just
That's right.
not. It's just impossible to shoot from the hip all the time, right? You can't, wheeler dealer your way into success anymore. If you're in it for the long term, you need to understand what's around you, and that needs to be measured. Those are numbers, those are metrics that need to be gathered and analyzed in time and really internalized. So it's less about building something that is cool, which we think it is because we do this, but it's more about building something that is fundamental for business success. In any
Yeah,
case,
I
go
think you
ahead.
hit on something there really interesting is even if you've built nothing and you simply purchased systems of record that have some reporting exposed, that is your business intelligence solution. That is your entire solution. You're using those reports, even if all you're doing is looking at your P&L and your, your basic reporting. That is what you have, and it starts from there. You can spend zero incremental dollars above what you're already spending, or you can spend whatever you want in time and money to have a solution. That, but kind of harp on this, but it is philosophical. It is about the vision, and the whole thing is if you're going to build a solution, the reason you're doing that is to improve, right? So if you're putting $10 into a solution, that thing needs to return $50. So when you look at what something is costing, yes, you want to do things as efficiently as possible, but you have to look at the return, the whole value of the solution. Any business owner that could have faith in spending $10 on something and know it's going to return 50, they're going to say, well, can I spend 20? Can I spend 30 on that? Right? Because they understand the return is, or the investment is worth the return. That's the mindset that we have to be in when we're looking at these solutions.
Yeah. Well, if all you're doing to run your business is look at your bank statement is your BI system. Isn't that
That's
fair?
it. That's absolutely right. That's the
Right.
way I look at it. And hey, it may be fine for a period of time, right?
It
For a
is.
starting business, it
Yes.
might be just fine.
Yes.
But at a certain point, it's not fine. At a certain point, you realize, man, I'm hiring these people and I'm spending, $500,000 in human resources, and yet I've got my people hamstrung because they don't have the information they need to actually work efficiently. You could take that $500,000 in human resource investment and get a lot more out of it if you just provide them the resources they need to do their job.
Right.
It's basically like, in a way, it's like, would you hire people without giving them a laptop? Are you going to ask them to do their job without a laptop so they have to write on paper and start faxing things? It's just
That's right.
a natural evolution that you need to give people as much. You need to give people what you can in order to have them provide the most value for the organization and for them to be as productive as possible. That's
Yes.
that's really what it is at the end of the day.
Well, the good thing is you're here to talk to those people that are considering making that commitment to running their business in the most objective way. So, if I am concerned with how complicated this may get, the risks involved, they are not insignificant, by the way. Um, what are the methods that we can use to make this less risky, to make this less expensive? With so many years into it, it is fair to imagine that practitioners like ourselves have come up with methods and ways of building this that are less complicated, less time consuming, and less costly. Take us through that, Paul.
Well, I'd say first of all, if as someone that's kind of coming into this completely new, like an organization is trying to just start down this road. Maybe the organization was using a system of record reports for a while, and now they're like, I really see that we're leaving a lot of money on the table. Let's build something to try to capture this. The first thing is forget about technology, because this is not a technology problem. The technology is, if we had a pie chart, it would be a sliver of the pie. The biggest part of the problem is it's really process oriented. How do we go about capturing this value? And it's not rocket science. The very first thing we got to do is identify opportunity. You can't tell any implementation team, internal, external, doesn't matter, to go build you something and expect that something to have any value unless you actually first say, hey, here's my business problem. Here's the opportunity I'm trying to go after. Because that right there sets the basis for everything. It tells us, well, how valuable is that opportunity? Is it a $10,000 a year opportunity, or is it $1 million a year opportunity, or is it a one-time opportunity? Those are very important things to understand when you're sizing the solution and determining how much investment you're going to put into it. So if you have that first step, I would say identifying the opportunity, making sure everybody understands what we're trying to accomplish. That's step one. Another thing is just how, I guess we're going to kind of get into the implementation methods here, because we do start getting into that. But once you say, this is what I want to accomplish, then someone's going to have to go figure out how to translate that business requirement into a technical spec. And then that technical spec has to be actually developed. You develop something based on the technical spec, and then you go through the whole life cycle of testing, promoting, and so on. So how do you accomplish that in a way that's as low risk as possible? So if we look at the past, I think pretty much nowadays you hardly ever hear of people advocating for waterfall type solutions for this type of a need, right? What we're not doing anymore is trying to collect all the requirements on day one for everything you might possibly need, write a big scope of work, try to itemize all of that stuff, and then go spec it out and build all of that stuff. And the reason we don't do that is because first of all, the business doesn't know all of the requirements on day one. They might have some detailed information about some requirements, but they don't know all the requirements. Second of all, those requirements are likely going to change. So if we take a big unit of work on day one and say we're going to go build it and we'll come back in 6 months or a year and here you go, well, in that time, it's possible that a lot of the opportunity has passed, the environment has changed, too many things have changed, and at the end of the day, we're ultimately going to deliver something that isn't going to be as valuable as it could be by taking that type of an approach. So most organizations nowadays are taking some sort of agile approach. We do the same, where we take small units of work, very small units of work, and we build individual components that then, on aggregate, ultimately will fulfill the need or deliver on the requirement. And that means that there's always stuff being built, and there's always features being pushed out to the business to use. It's not like on, day 3, you've got everything, but on day 3, you have something. Maybe, it's one dimension, or maybe it's another, whatever it is, right? You have something. And as a business user, you're watching that thing progress. You're actually seeing the end results as it's kind of coming together. And that's very important because as a business user, if I see things being built, like if I'm watching a house being built, it's a natural, we understand what's going on. We're building the foundation, we're building, we're building the frame, we're building all these things. Well, if I'm watching that happen and I see something go in a way that doesn't make sense, well, I'm going to say something, right? If I see that there's a garage on the wrong side of the house being framed up for a foundation, I'm going to say something before that foundation gets poured. That's one of the main reasons why it's important to constantly be pushing stuff out to production, is so the business can actually see these things as they're being built out. And if we have a miscommunication, an error, a revelation during during this process, hopefully we can capture that much sooner, and of course, eliminating a lot of the potential waste that would be involved if we went down that road to fruition.
Yeah. I'm going to take us back a step when you mention what justifies this. You say, well, I feel some sort of, people like to use the term pain, not physical pain, but, I guess as a manager, you may feel emotional pain seeing your business being so inefficient when it could be much more efficient. So that usually is what justifies the first initiative. So one step back from agile methods is the value. Why am I doing this? And I think you bring up a strong point around I got to have some math that can tell me that if I'm spending $1 in this, I want $5 coming out of something. What could that something be is actually quite important. If you have zero visibility into customer profitability, well, go after that. If you have zero profitability on team productivity, do the math. If I were to be able to save 10% or increase my team's productivity by 10%, what would the potential gain, and that's simple arithmetic, be if that happened? And there you go. Add all those up, and you have a business case right there. Sometimes our client says, "Well, I'm profitable. I know I could be better. But what ails the team? It takes a long time to get reports. That counts, right? So it's so pervasive, is what I'm trying to say. On the step zero, which is what justifies doing this in the first place, it's usually economic gain, and it's everywhere in every organization. You can always do better. So not very hard. Second is not so risky. I think that's your second point there, in the sense that if you do it right, you will be, and monitor, stay on top, and that's such a critical component. Vendors cannot alone deliver this. This is an internal process where the team needs to commit to it. So it takes time. It's an investment not only of money but of people's attention, which is such a precious resource these days. But once you have that commitment, like you said, let's look at it as frequently as we possibly can. And if there's something that is rubbing us the wrong way, we'll sit down and undo it if we have to. Isn't that right?
Yeah, yeah. And let's try to get to that point where we realize that we're going down the wrong road as quickly as possible, so we don't go down that road too far. Usually you're a lot less likely to go down this wrong path when you're focused on small units of work, because it's a lot easier to communicate about one deliverable as compared to a dozen or more deliverables. Now we can focus on that one thing, and we can get that one thing built correctly and into the hands of the business. But back to what you were saying about value, I think that's one area that often falls through the cracks is, identifying the value we're going after. Actually write that thing down. What are we going after? What's the value to the business? How are we going to measure this thing? And then after this is all done, you got to go back and see, okay, well, how did we do? Did we actually capture that value? Yes, great. Can we do better? No. Okay, well, where did we go off the rails here, right? How do we adjust to get this investment on track to capture that value? And then you have to advocate. Let the organization know what you're doing, what's working. Usually it's going to be contagious, right? As soon as you build something that's valuable for an organization, it doesn't take much time for other units or other departments in the organization to see what's going on and want the same. Generally, everybody wants to do well. And when you give them tools to do well, they're going to use those tools.
Value is contagious.
Absolutely. Yes.
T-shirts.
Efficiency. Yeah. No one wants to feel like they're just wasting their time. No one wants to go to work and say, man, I know this could be done better. We have all this information here. If I could just get this organized in a way that I can actually use it, I can save half of an FTE here just by doing that little thing. Or from an executive's perspective, sometimes when we come into these organizations, they feel like they're kind of flying blind. They're flying the plane without the gauges, is the analogy. What's the value in giving your leadership team an understanding of where an organization is? I know it's not a black and white thing to nail down, but it is pretty darn important to try to capture that. You could do it in a number of ways. You can do it as, kind of in a, what are you spending on your leadership team? Or you could do it as what actually opportunity you're trying to get the leadership team to go and capture. I mean, we're kind of going off a tangent here a little bit because we're talking about data architecture, but it is important to know, why are we doing this? Because that does help making that decision of whether you're going to go with a system record report as a point solution potentially. If you're just going to use your system record reports, not build anything additional, if you go with staging or ODS or data warehouse, that all of this plays into that decision. It's important the business understands the variables that have to be weighed.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's totally important to always reconnect to the business purpose. Well, agile is great. You can course correct frequently. Um, it's something that's well established as a method of working in technology. And but then the next question in the minds of decision makers is, well, if you're going to be agile for 3 years, it's still going to be very expensive. So let's confront a serious point. And you did tee us up nicely there when you say forget technology. I think that's such a load off for me. I remember the days of millions of dollars and everything is expensive and you're locked in for years into complex contracts. And now everything is consumable almost. You go there and you get a fraction of technology, and that reduces your cost so much. But still, um, there's work to be done, right, Paul? And that needs to be paid for. People don't work for free. This is sophisticated work. This is complex work. So what should decision makers expect on the cost side?
Well, I think you said it right there. The cost is in the labor, not the technology. That's not to say that you can't spend a lot on technology. You certainly can, but at least for the market that we serve, which is the small and mid-sized organizations, you should not be going out and spending, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or more on infrastructure. It should not happen. Not today. There's ways of doing this a lot more efficiently than that type of spend. And again, the old pie chart. If you look at the spend, if we're trying to break that down, it's all about the labor. I mean, people are what's going to cost money here, not the technology. But the technology does have a lot to do with how much time it's going to take the labor to actually implement something. So it's quite important that you have a well-established data architecture and you understand all the things that are going to influence cost and productivity. And that there are a lot of things in there from how are you going to use the cloud resources, and what type of if we're going to get into technology now, what type of storage engine are you going to use? How are you going to move data? There's a lot of things involved here, and there's not just one way to accomplish that. But if we try to separate ourselves from the emotional side of what technology we want to use, a lot of times when you talk to a technologist, they're excited about new technologies, they're excited about doing and learning new things, right? That's just from the nature of being a human being. But from a business goal perspective, if we're trying to go capture some value, and we're a small and mid-sized organization, and we don't have the ability to risk a lot of money on this thing, we're not doing R&D here in an analogous standpoint. What we're trying to do is actually build something with the highest chance of success. And we don't need a Cadillac. If I'm going to the grocery store, I'm not buying a McLaren to get there. I'm going to drive my Honda CRV to get to the grocery store, because I don't have, a lot of money to go spend just because I want everybody to think I'm driving a McLaren. And frankly, the McLaren is going to get me there just the same as the Honda CRV.
And the groceries are not going to fit well in them anyway, right?
That's right. You're going to have a hard time sticking depending on how much groceries you get, you may have to carry some on your lap. But that is often what we're seeing here. Another thing about technology is that you want something that's proven. Commodity. Think commodity. That's what you want. You do not want to be that company that's going out and trying the latest and greatest thing, because guess what? You don't have to today. We have amazing technologies that have been proven for years and years and years, well established, with huge resources of human skills that can actually implement on these technologies, which greatly reduces your cost as a company trying to build these solutions, reduces your risk, reduces the time it's going to take to build something. It just doesn't make sense for a small and mid-sized organizations in most cases to take the approach that maybe a super large enterprise would take when they're saying, hey, I want to go see if this thing is going to potentially have some benefit to my organization. I'm willing to put $5 million into it.
Which is
That's not where,
0.001 of my IT budget. So why
right.
not?
They
Right.
don't care, right? It's not a big
Right.
deal to them.
Right.
The clients we worked with, it is a darn big deal. We
Right.
have to succeed, right? So risk at the technology level has got to be virtually eliminated. And we have to have a very prescribed way of getting from point A to point B so that we can, work efficiently, have a sustainable solution. And, I said this before, Alex, but every dollar we spend on this solution is a dollar we have to earn back before we've added a penny of value. Every dollar we spend, we've got to earn that back before we've added any value whatsoever. That's that's the focus that we have, and I think that's what organizations in this market, generally we say that it's kind of in the 500 and under employees, all the way from one employee all the way up to say around the 500 level, and that varies by industry. But that mid market has got to be laser focused on value.
And interestingly enough, this is an episode we were talking about data warehousing. We're talking about the whole economics of it, but we are talking about data warehousing, and the reason
Right.
being it is the most resilient, tested, accepted, evolved data architecture. We spent a few episodes talking about what to build. And what do you think, Paul? Data warehouses win in terms of data architecture, quality, value. It does take a little longer, and we addressed all the risk factors in this episode today, but it is a superior design. Agreed or
I
not?
mean, if you can get there, right, if it's
Yes.
right for your organization, it's the most capable solution. It's designed to be scalable. It's designed to be potentially the most valuable asset that your organization is ever going to have, because it's an information repository, is what it is. That's going to grow and support your business as your business grows,
Think of it
as
as like
opposed
the
to other
brain of
solutions.
the company, right?
Sort of like the storage engine of the company, the
Right.
brain of the company,
Right.
or what's feeding the brain. The humans, I
Yeah.
guess, would be the
Right.
brain.
The
This is
brain.
what's
Yeah.
kind of feeding the brains of your company, which is your biggest investment typically in an organization, is those people. Now, that's not to minimize, the legitimacy of a point solution like a system record reporting solution or anything else, because often a data warehouse is not the right step for an organization to go as a first move here. Sometimes, like we talked about before, it makes sense. Let's go build a point solution knowing it's going to be throwaway in 6 months or a year and 2 years. Let's go build that, because we have to show basically that this is a viable approach to solving a problem, or show that we can actually capture value. And yeah, that's throwaway work, but maybe the learning that comes out of that does help with the ultimate data structure we decide to build for an organization.
But if you're successful, you will end up with a data warehouse.
Eventually, you should. Yeah, I think
That's how important they
any.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the pinnacle of these decision support systems, I think.
A target
Um,
design.
right. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about AI and predictive analytics and all of these things, the more advanced type models that you train or utilize in various.
But they would still benefit from a data warehouse.
Yeah, these solutions, in our data solution pyramid, we put that as the very tip right above data warehouses,
Right.
because we feel like, um, you know, it just to us doesn't make sense to go to this predictive part of the world without first understanding the descriptive part of the world, because descriptive is much easier. It's much more reliable. It's going to be 100% right when built correctly. Predictive is not about, first of all, it's more difficult, I would say, maybe because of my skill level, but it's much more difficult to get right. It's gonna often rely on the data warehouse for its ingestion, because depending on what type of model you're building, it's often beneficial to have well organized and prepared information to train the model on. Uh, but that is an exciting area, I would say. With the way AI is moving forward nowadays, especially, it's been a lot of advancements in that area. it's something that organizations should explore. I just don't think it should be explored before you have your descriptive analytics in place. There's a lot of value to be gained just right there.
Excellent. That would be a perfect topic for some future conversation. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, great talking again. See you next time.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment below. This concludes our 6-part series on data architecture. We sure hope you enjoyed the discussions and stay tuned for our next episode.